Ancient civilizations mastered technologies we still cannot fully replicate. This video uncovers 28 invisible innovations that defy our modern expectations, from self-healing concrete to an ancient analog computer. You will discover a hidden history of human ingenuity that will permanently change how you view the past. How did the Romans build structures that last millennia while ours crumble in decades? What forgotten knowledge allowed sailors to navigate vast oceans using only the stars and waves? By the end, you will see the timeline of human progress not as a straight line, but as a story of brilliant peaks and mysterious valleys. Are we truly more advanced than the world that came before us? A storm-tossed sponge diver off the coast of a tiny Greek island first laid eyes on the wreck in 1900. He surfaced from the murky depths with tales of bronze statues and marble figures strewn across the seafloor, a ghostly cargo from another time. Among the shattered remains of that ancient ship, salvagers recovered a lump of corroded bronze, so encrusted and misshapen it was almost discarded as a piece of worthless rock. Decades would pass before anyone realized this unassuming object was, in fact, the single most technologically complex artifact to survive from the ancient world. We now call it the Antikythera Mechanism. Dating to around 100 years before the Common Era, this intricate device was an ancient analog computer. Through painstaking analysis using advanced X-ray technology, researchers slowly peeled back the layers of time. They revealed a stunningly precise system of interlocking bronze gears, housed within a wooden case no larger than a shoebox. Dials and inscriptions on its faces acted as a cosmic calendar, predicting the movements of the sun and moon, the positions of planets, and even the timing of upcoming eclipses. It could model the irregular orbit of the moon with a level of accuracy that would not be matched for centuries. The historian Derek J. DeSolla Price, who dedicated years to studying the mechanism, concluded it was more sophisticated than any known instrument for the next 1,000 years. Its very existence shatters our neat timeline of progress. Here was a device of astronomical genius, born in a world we imagine as powered by simple levers and rudimentary tools. How did its creators achieve such microscopic precision in their gear teeth without the aid of industrial lathes or computer modeling? The Antikythera Mechanism stands as a silent, profound challenge, forcing us to reconsider the entire technological landscape of the Hellenistic world and hinting at a vast ocean of scientific knowledge that was lost to the waves of history. That same genius for engineering was cast not only in delicate gears but in the very bedrock of an empire. The Pantheon in Rome still stands beneath the largest unreinforced concrete dome in the world, a monument that has weathered nearly 2,000 years without its core collapsing. Modern concrete, by stark contrast, is often designed to last merely 50 or 100 years before showing significant decay. So what secret ingredient did the Romans possess that we have lost? The answer lies in a revolutionary recipe. Roman engineers mixed lime and volcanic ash, specifically a type of ash from the Pozzuoli region, with chunks of rock and bricks. But the true magic happened when this mix was exposed to seawater, creating a marine concrete used to build colossal harbors that still stand intact today. While modern concrete cracks and erodes as water seeps in, Roman concrete does the opposite. Geologists have discovered that seawater reacting with the volcanic ash and lime creates rare, plate-like crystals that slowly grow, seamlessly filling any cracks that form. It is a material that actively heals itself. This was not a passive substance waiting to fail, but a living, reactive technology. The knowledge of this specific, potent formula faded with the Roman Empire itself, a victim of fractured trade routes and lost institutional knowledge. Today, laboratories around the world are racing to reverse engineer this ancient marvel, hoping to unlock a recipe that could slash maintenance costs and create seawalls and structures capable of lasting for millennia. The Romans built for eternity, and we are only now beginning to understand how they achieved it. From the solid endurance of Roman concrete, we shift to a weapon of terrifying fluidity. The seas that carried ancient cargo also became the stage for one of history's most fearsome and mysterious weapons. Picture a Byzantine dromon warship closing in on an enemy fleet under the cover of night. Suddenly, a bronze tube mounted on its bow erupts, projecting a roaring stream of liquid fire that clings to the water and the ships it touches. This was Greek fire, a technological marvel so potent it defended an empire for over 7 centuries. Historical accounts from besieged armies describe a nightmare. This was no ordinary flame. Water seemed to fuel it, and it could only be smothered with sand, vinegar, or perhaps stale urine. It was a weapon that seemed to defy the very elements, creating a psychological terror as potent as its physical destruction. The secret of its formula was the Byzantine Empire's most closely guarded state secret, known only to a select few, including the reigning emperor and one family of chemists. So complete was this secrecy that the exact composition was lost to history, a puzzle modern scientists are still trying to solve. We know it was likely a volatile cocktail of crude petroleum, pine resin, and possibly quicklime, a substance that ignites upon contact with water. The true genius, however, lay not just in the flammable mixture itself, but in its deployment. How did they pump this unstable substance under pressure without destroying their own ships? How did they create a precise and controllable nozzle to project the stream? This was not merely throwing a burning pot, it was advanced chemical engineering. Modern attempts to recreate Greek fire based on historical clues have produced flammable liquids, but none that match the described behavior of clinging to water and resisting extinction. This lost chapter in pyrotechnics stands as a stark reminder that ancient mastery extended beyond architecture and astronomy into the volatile realm of chemical warfare, a ghost of a technology whose shadow still flickers just beyond our understanding. A blade forged from Damascus steel was a paradox in the warrior's hand, capable of cleaving an enemy's helmet in two without shattering, its surface shimmering with the ghostly, flowing pattern of a rippling stream. This legendary metal, known as Wootz steel, originated in India and was painstakingly shaped by master smiths across the Middle East. Its reputation was not mere myth. It was a product of a metallurgical art form we have yet to perfectly duplicate. The secret began with a specific type of iron ore rich in carbon and other trace elements, melted in a sealed clay crucible and cooled with agonizing slowness over days. This process created a unique internal crystalline structure, a matrix of ultra-hard steel laced with bands of softer, more flexible metal. It was this very structure modern electron microscopes have revealed that contained carbon nanotubes, structures so advanced we associate them with 21st century nanotechnology. Somehow, with only fire, hammer, and anvil, these ancient artisans were engineering materials at the molecular level. The question is not just what they made, but how they knew. Without the concept of atoms or the aid of powerful microscopes, how did they develop and perfect a process that embedded such futuristic components into their metal? The knowledge vanished around the 18th century. Perhaps the specific mines in India were exhausted, or the guilds of smiths who held the intricate recipes were broken up by war and social upheaval. The loss was absolute. modern attempts to recreate Damascus steel often produce beautiful blades with the characteristic watery pattern, but they lack the legendary combination of a razor-sharp edge that resists chipping and a blade body that flexes without breaking. This forgotten art stands as a quiet testament to a level of material science that we once possessed, then inexplicably let slip through our fingers, leaving behind only the enduring mystery of its shimmering surface. While the smiths of Damascus mastered fire and metal, another culture achieved an even greater feat of navigation, conquering the largest ocean on Earth with nothing but their wits and a deep reading of the natural world. The Polynesian voyagers set out across the vast emptiness of the Pacific in double-hulled canoes, vessels that were both their home and their vehicle for discovering every habitable island across a triangle of ocean spanning millions of square miles. They accomplished this centuries before European explorers who clung to coastlines in fear of the open sea dared to venture into the same waters. These navigators had no magnetic compasses, no written charts, and no metal tools. Their technology was invisible, etched into their minds and passed down through generations. They sailed by the stars, memorizing the precise rising and setting points of hundreds of celestial bodies to create a mental star compass that guided them unerringly. But their genius extended far beyond the heavens. They learned to read the ocean itself. A seasoned navigator could lie down in the hull of his canoe and feel the subtle patterns of swells reflected from distant islands, sensing land far beyond the horizon. They watched the flight paths of certain seabirds at dusk, knowing these birds would fly out to sea to fish but always return to land at night, turning them into living compasses. They interpreted the colors of the clouds and the taste of the wind. This was not a collection of separate tricks, but a single, holistic knowledge system, a profound symbiosis with the environment. Modern sailors using GPS and satellite communications still marvel at this ability. Anthropologists who have learned these wayfinding techniques from the last traditional masters describe it as a form of extended perception, a feeling of being physically connected to the sea and sky. What we call technology today often revolves around the latest device, but the Polynesian legacy forces us to ask a deeper question. Is a smartphone truly more advanced than the cultivated ability to sense an invisible island hundreds of miles away simply by the rhythm of the waves against your hull? Their achievement stands as a monumental testament to a different kind of progress, one built not on silicon and steel, but on observation, memory, and a timeless conversation with the world. High in the Andes, the stones of Machu Picchu fit together so perfectly you cannot force a single blade of grass between them. These are not small bricks, but colossal blocks of granite, some weighing many tons, shaped and joined without a drop of mortar. The joints are so tight, so flawlessly interlocked, that they have endured centuries of violent earthquakes that routinely topple modern buildings. Inca stonemasons achieved this not with steel tools, but with a profound understanding of their materials. They would pound the stones for generations, using harder river rocks to patiently abrade the surfaces until they met in a seamless, puzzle-like fit. Some researchers speculate they may have used a plant-based softening agent to make the stone temporarily malleable, though no definitive proof of such a substance has ever been found. The real mystery, however, is not just the shaping but the assembly. How did they transport these gigantic blocks up treacherous mountain paths without the wheel or draft animals? How did they test the fit of such immense, irregular stones, lowering and raising them repeatedly until the contact was perfect? The precision implies the use of sophisticated measuring tools or templates, yet none have been discovered. Modern engineers studying these walls have uncovered their seismic secret. Instead of being rigidly locked, the blocks are designed to dance, During an earthquake, the entire wall structure is engineered to shift and settle, the stones rocking and settling back into place without collapsing. It is a form of ancient anti-seismic technology that we are only now learning to appreciate and emulate. The Inca did not simply build walls, they built a resilient, breathing architecture, a silent dialogue between stone and earth that has yet to be broken. Standing in the heart of Delhi for over 1,600 years, a 23-foot-tall iron pillar defies one of nature's most relentless laws. It simply will not rust, exposed to monsoon rains, scorching sun, and modern pollution. This ancient wrought iron monument shows only a thin, stable patina, a stark contrast to the flaking, corrosive decay that would consume a modern steel structure in a matter of decades. The secret is not in its composition, but in its creation. Ancient Indian ironsmiths crafted the pillar with an unusually high phosphorus content and a very low amount of sulfur and manganese, a specific recipe that promotes the formation of a protective passive layer. When this layer is exposed to air, it bonds into a hard, glassy shell that actively shields the metal beneath from the elements. Modern science understands the chemistry in principle, but the precise forging techniques and the knowledge behind this specific formula have been lost. We struggle to replicate it because our industrial processes are fundamentally different. Our steel production uses limestone in blast furnaces, which strips out phosphorus as an impurity, creating a metal that is strong but inherently vulnerable to rust without constant maintenance and coatings. The creators of the Delhi pillar, however, worked with a different philosophy. They did not see phosphorus as an impurity to be removed, but as a vital ingredient to be carefully controlled and harnessed. How did they achieve such a perfect, uniform mix in a massive, solid object without modern temperature controls or chemical assays? The pillar itself is an inscription, a testament to a king's achievements, but its true, silent message is one of profound material wisdom. It forces us to wonder if our path of industrial progress, for all its power, might have inadvertently closed a door to a different kind of metallurgy, one that built for permanence rather than for replacement. This single artifact stands as a quiet, unyielding challenge to our entire timeline of metallurgical advancement. The silent, rust-resistant pillar in Delhi speaks of a mastery over metal, but another civilization demonstrated a different kind of precision, one etched into the horizon itself. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned to true north with an accuracy of within 1/15th of a single degree. To grasp this achievement, consider that modern architects using GPS and laser theodolites would struggle to match such perfection on a structure of that colossal scale. The pyramid's 4 base sides form a near-perfect square, its corners pointing almost exactly to the 4 cardinal directions. This was not a lucky guess. It was the result of a sophisticated and now largely lost technology of celestial surveying. Without a magnetic compass which points to magnetic north and not true north, the ancient Egyptians turned their eyes to the sky. Archaeoastronomers propose a method using the circumpolar stars, those stars which never set below the horizon from a given location. By marking the rising and setting positions of a single star like Kochab or Mizar over the course of a night, and then bisecting the angle created, they could find a precise north-south line. Another theory suggests they used a simple but brilliantly effective tool called a merkit, a horizontal bar with a plumb line that could track the shadow of a vertical rod. By observing the arc of the sun's shadow throughout the day, they could establish an east-west line with stunning accuracy. The true mystery deepens when we look beyond a single pyramid. The 3 great pyramids of Giza are arranged in a pattern that mirrors the 3 stars of Orion's belt, a celestial mirroring that suggests their purpose was as much astronomical as it was funerary. This implies a unified, grand design and a profound understanding of the Earth's place in the cosmos. How did they maintain this precision over the decades it took to build each pyramid? The alignment reflects a hidden technological prowess, a seamless fusion of astronomy, mathematics, and engineering that allowed them to anchor a mountain of stone to the very axis of the planet. A simple clay jar, unearthed from the sands near Baghdad, held a secret that seems to defy its time. Inside the unassuming vessel, archaeologists found a copper cylinder sealed with asphalt, and within it an iron rod. To the modern eye, its construction is eerily familiar. It looks exactly like a primitive battery, dating back nearly 2,000 years to the Parthian period. This so-called Baghdad Battery, discovered in the 1930s, forces a difficult question. Did a civilization centuries before Galvani or Vol to stumble upon the basic principles of electricity? The object itself offers no written manual, no inscription to declare its purpose. Yet when filled with an acidic electrolyte, something as common as vinegar or grape juice, replicas of this jar produce a measurable, though small, electric current around 1 to 2 volts. It is not enough to power a light, but it is enough to make one wonder, what practical use could such a gentle current have served? One compelling theory points to electroplating, the process of using electricity to bond a thin layer of gold or silver onto another metal surface. Artisans of the time were masters of gilding, and a small electrical current could have provided a more controlled and efficient method than techniques we currently attribute to them. Another possibility lies in the realm of medicine, where the faint tingle of electricity might have been used for therapeutic or even mystical purposes, a sensation attributed to divine power. The debate among scholars is far from settled. Skeptics argue it could have been a simple storage jar for sacred scrolls, the iron rod merely a rusted core. But the intentional design, with the asphalt seal perfectly insulating the two different metals, makes the electrical explanation hauntingly plausible. This single, silent artifact invites us to consider a hidden thread in the story of innovation. Perhaps the fundamental forces of nature were not discovered in a linear sequence, but were glimpsed, toyed with, and then forgotten, leaving behind only a cryptic clay pot as a clue to a knowledge that flickered briefly into existence before fading once more into the dark. While the Baghdad Battery hints at a lost spark of electrical knowledge, another ancient device detected disturbances on a planetary scale. In the year 138 of the Common Era, a court official in the Chinese Han Dynasty named Zhang presented the emperor with a masterpiece of bronze and artistry. It was a large, ornate vessel surrounded by 8 dragons, each holding a bronze ball in its jaws. Below them, 8 corresponding bronze toads sat with their mouths wide open. To the untrained eye, it was a magnificent sculpture. In reality, it was the world's first seismoscope, a machine designed to detect earthquakes from hundreds of miles away. The principle was as elegant as it was effective. When a distant tremor sent its vibrations through the earth, the hidden mechanism inside the vessel would be triggered. A single dragon would release its ball, which would clatter into the mouth of the toad below with a loud, unmistakable ring. The direction of the quake was instantly revealed by which dragon had reacted. Historical records recount a specific instance where the device triggered, indicating a quake to the west. No one in the capital had felt a thing, and the report was initially met with skepticism. Days later, a messenger arrived from a province hundreds of miles to the west, confirming a devastating earthquake had struck at the exact moment the dragon had dropped its ball. So how did this ancient instrument work without a single electronic sensor? The most accepted theory suggests an inverted pendulum was suspended inside the vessel. When seismic waves from a specific direction arrived, they would cause the pendulum to swing, tripping a lever mechanism that opened the jaws of just one dragon. The genius was in its sensitivity, able to pick up the faint, long-range waves that travel far ahead of the destructive tremors. This means Zhang Heng and his engineers understood that earthquakes generated different types of energy that moved through the ground at different speeds, a concept foundational to modern seismology. They built a mechanical sensor of incredible refinement using only bronze, ingenuity, and a deep observation of the natural world. We can only speculate on the precise arrangement of levers and springs inside that bronze urn, as the original design has been lost to time. Yet this single device redefines our view of ancient capability. It was not merely an instrument for measurement, it was a system for early warning, a technological leap in disaster preparedness conceived nearly 2,000 years ago. High above the jungle floor, the grand plazas of Tikal were not its only marvel. Beneath the feet of its bustling populace lay an invisible latticework of life, a hydraulic network so advanced it sustained one of the world's most powerful cities in the heart of a seasonal rainforest. The Maya did not merely live with water, they engineered it. They transformed their entire urban landscape into a massive catchment system, paving vast central areas with plaster that sloped perfectly to channel every drop of rain into a series of immense, meticulously sealed reservoirs. These were not simple ponds, but complex, multi-stage water treatment plants. Before the water even reached the main holding tanks, it was often directed through filtration beds made of crushed limestone and zeolite sand, a crystalline mineral that acts as a natural sieve, trapping sediments and even harmful bacteria. This was a deliberate, chemical-free purification process using the very geology they stood upon. Gravity was their silent, constant laborer, pulling water through canals and aqueducts from these central reservoirs to outlying neighborhoods and agricultural terraces. This system was their defense against the rainforest's paradox, the months of flooding rains followed by periods of severe drought. It was a technology of balance, allowing Tikal to support a population of up to 100,000 people in an environment that could easily have defeated a less ingenious society. Modern hydrologists studying the remnants of these systems are struck by their foresight. They created separate reservoirs for different uses, like drinking and irrigation, and designed them to settle out silt, ensuring a cleaner supply. This was not just civil engineering, it was ecological wisdom in stone and water. The Maya viewed their city as a single, interconnected organism, where the plaza, the temple, and the reservoir were all parts of a whole. In our modern world of energy-intensive water treatment plants and fragile supply lines, their achievement poses a profound question. Have we, in our pursuit of complex technological solutions, forgotten the elegant, integrated principles that allowed an ancient civilization to not just survive, but flourish for centuries against nature's greatest challenges? The Maya mastery of water was a triumph of terrestrial engineering, but another culture achieved a similar feat of navigation by reading the sky in a way that seems almost magical. Viking sailors traversed the brutal North Atlantic under skies often choked with fog and cloud, conditions that would render a modern magnetic compass useless. Their secret weapon was not a complex instrument, but a simple, transparent crystal. We know it as the Sunstone. This was likely a piece of calcite or cordierite, minerals with a unique optical property called birefringence. When you look through such a crystal, you see two images. By rotating the stone and observing how these twin images change in brightness and clarity against the sky's polarized light, a skilled navigator could pinpoint the exact position of the hidden sun, even through a solid overcast or in the dim haze of twilight. It was a tool that made the invisible visible, modern researchers have tested replicas of these sunstones on voyages, confirming their startling accuracy. They could determine the sun's location to within a single degree, a level of precision that could mean the difference between reaching a new shore and vanishing forever into the gray sea. This technology was the key that unlocked the North Atlantic, enabling the Viking voyages to Iceland, Greenland, and ultimately to the coast of Newfoundland, a full 500 years before Columbus. The profound question is not just how they used it, but how they ever discovered such a subtle property of light in the first place. Did a curious artisan notice the strange double vision in a piece of crystal and connect it to the patterns of the sky? This was not merely using a tool, it was a deep, intuitive harnessing of physics. The Sunstone stands as a perfect symbol of ancient innovation, a brilliant solution carved from the very elements of the earth, proving that the most advanced technology is sometimes the one that works in perfect harmony with nature's hidden laws. While the Vikings used crystals to navigate the open sea, another civilization solved a far more terrestrial challenge by turning to the earth itself. Deep beneath the sun-scorched plains of ancient Persia, a hidden network of veins carried the gift of life. These were the Qanats, subterranean canals that stretched for dozens of miles, channeling water from mountain aquifers to the arid valleys below with nothing but the silent, relentless pull of gravity. Dating back over 3,000 years, this was not merely a system of tunnels, it was the very foundation of civilization in a harsh landscape. A single Qanat began with a mother well dug deep into the water table at the foot of a mountain. From there, builders would tunnel backward, carving a gently sloping channel just large enough for a person to crawl through, all the way to the distant settlement that needed the water. Along the entire length, vertical access shafts were dug down to the tunnel at regular intervals, not only for removing excavated earth but for providing essential air and maintenance for generations to come. The engineering precision required was staggering. The gradient had to be perfect, a consistent, shallow drop of just a few feet per mile. Too steep, and the water would flow too fast, eroding the tunnel walls. Too flat, and the water would stagnate and fail to move at all. How did they achieve this without laser levels or theodolites? They used simple, brilliant tools like water-filled trenches and weighted cords to measure the drop over vast distances, a testament to the power of fundamental physics mastered by human ingenuity. This knowledge became a sacred trust passed down from father to son, a living map of the underground world. The result was a water supply that was both abundant and perfectly preserved, flowing in the cool, dark earth, completely safe from the evaporation that would claim any open canal under the desert sun. Today, as many parts of the world face severe water scarcity, engineers and planners are looking back to the Qanat as a model of radical sustainability. It required no pumps, no external power, and created no waste, operating in perfect harmony with the hydrology of the region for centuries. This ancient answer to a timeless problem forces us to ask a difficult question. In our rush to build complex, energy-intensive solutions, have we overlooked the elegant wisdom of working with the land rather than forcing our will upon it? Hero of Alexandria described a device that could have changed the course of history. Known as the Aeolipile, it was a simple but profound invention, a sealed sphere mounted on a pair of pivots. When a fire was lit beneath a boiler connected to the sphere, steam would rush through pipes into the hollow ball, escaping through two opposing, bent nozzles. The reactive force of these jets of steam would then cause the entire sphere to spin, a whirling metal globe powered by nothing but heated water. This was not merely a philosophical toy, it was a working demonstration of the principles of jet propulsion and steam power, a miniature engine built in the 1st century of the Common Era. It proves without a doubt that the fundamental concept of converting thermal energy into rotational motion was understood in the ancient world. The haunting question is not what they built, but what they did not build next. Why did this brilliant spark fail to ignite an industrial revolution 2,000 years before James Watt? The answer lies not in a lack of intelligence, but in the societal and economic landscape of the ancient Mediterranean. The classical world was built on the backs of abundant, cheap slave labor. There was simply no pressing economic incentive to invest in the complex and costly development of machines to replace human muscle. Furthermore, the material science of the time might not have been advanced enough to build large-scale, high-pressure boilers that could withstand the forces needed for practical work. Hero himself, a brilliant engineer and mathematician, categorized the Aeolipile as a wonder, a clever demonstration for temples or the courts of kings. It was seen as a marvel, not a motor. This single object forces us to confront the idea that technological progress is not an inevitable, linear climb. It is a fragile dance of discovery, necessity, and cultural context. A brilliant idea born before its time can simply fade away if the world is not ready to receive it. The Aeolipile stands as a ghost from a road not taken, a silent testament to a potential future that remained locked away in a sphere of spinning bronze. The same principles of permanence that shaped colossal pyramids were also applied to the most delicate of mediums, the written word. Unroll a papyrus scroll from ancient Egypt, and you will find the hieroglyphs and cursive script still strikingly black and clear, their message undimmed after more than 2,000 years. This was no accident of preservation, but the result of a deliberately engineered material, Egyptian black ink. At its heart was a brilliantly simple formula, carbon black, which is essentially soot, meticulously ground and mixed with a binder like gum arabic from the acacia tree. This created a stable, water-resistant ink that adhered perfectly to the papyrus surface. Yet recent scientific analyses using sophisticated tools like Raman spectroscopy have revealed hidden layers of complexity. Scribes sometimes added other organic additives, perhaps oils or proteins, to fine-tune the ink's viscosity and durability, creating a consistent product batch after batch. This was not a haphazard recipe, it was a standardized, sophisticated craft. How did they achieve such flawless performance without modern synthetic chemistry or quality control labs? The answer lies in a deep, empirical understanding of their natural resources. They knew which woods produced the finest soot for a deep, pure black. They understood the gum arabic acted as both an adhesive and a protective coating, sealing the carbon particles against moisture and the abrasive wear of time. Modern chemists are now looking to these ancient formulations to solve a very contemporary problem, the tragic fading of modern documents and artworks. Our own archival inks can degrade, discolor, or become brittle within a century, a blink of an eye compared to the enduring legacy of the Egyptian scribe. The persistence of this simple black ink speaks volumes about a civilization that thought not in years, but in millennia, mastering material science on a scale that still commands our respect and our curiosity. A Roman villa in the chill of a British winter was no less comfortable than its Mediterranean counterpart, its inhabitants warmed from the ground up by an invisible embrace of heat. This was the Hypocaust, an ancient central heating system that transformed living spaces. Beneath the intricate tile mosaics of the floors, a network of short pillars held the entire floor aloft, creating a hollow space, a plenum chamber. In an adjacent furnace room, a slave would tirelessly feed wood or charcoal into a raging fire, and the hot gases and air it produced would be channeled into this void. The heat would then snake its way under the floor before rising through specially designed terracotta pipes embedded within the walls, turning the entire structure into a massive, gentle radiator. The genius was in the control, with bronze dampers regulating the flow to different parts of the building, allowing for a remarkably even distribution of warmth. This was not just for luxury, it was a matter of public health, keeping the sprawling Roman bath complexes, like the famous baths of Caracalla, humid and tropical even in the dead of winter. The knowledge required was profound, an intuitive grasp of thermodynamics, airflow, and materials science to prevent fires or the buildup of deadly carbon monoxide. So why did this brilliant, practical technology vanish for nearly 1,000 years after Rome's decline? The answer is a story of collapsed infrastructure. The Hypocaust system was a creature of empire, requiring organized labor, specialized bricklayers, and a constant, expensive fuel supply. With the fracturing of trade routes and the disintegration of large-scale civic projects, the expertise and economic model that supported it simply evaporated. The great villas fell into disrepair, and people returned to huddling around smoky, inefficient hearths, a regression in daily comfort that would last until the 18th century. The loss of the Hypocaust was more than just a step backward in engineering. It was a centuries-long winter for indoor living, a stark reminder that even the most brilliant innovations are fragile, entirely dependent on the civilization that births them. A lodestone spoon carved from a single piece of naturally magnetic rock spins silently on a polished bronze plate. This was not a tool for sailors but for diviners. In the Han Dynasty, centuries before it would guide ships across oceans, the compass was an instrument of geomancy, used to align temples, tombs, and homes in harmony with the unseen forces of the earth, a practice known as feng shui. The original navigators were not captains but mystics. They called these devices south-pointing spoons, and their purpose was to chart a course through the spiritual landscape, ensuring that human structures resonated with the cosmic order. The profound leap came when someone realized that this spiritual alignment tool could also point the way in the physical world. How did a culture without a formal theory of magnetism discover such a fundamental property of our planet? They likely encountered lodestone, a naturally magnetic mineral, and observed its stubborn insistence on pointing in a single direction when left to rotate freely. This was a property they could not explain, only harness, attributing its power to cosmic forces. The evolution from a bronze plate in a diviner's hand to a needle floating in a bowl of water on a ship's deck was a slow but revolutionary journey. It demonstrates a pattern we see again and again, where a technology born for ritual or art finds a completely unexpected and world-changing practical application. Our modern world is built on this same principle of magnetic detection, from the magnetometers that scan for archaeological ruins beneath the soil to the precise sensors in every smartphone. The ancient Chinese compass stands as a powerful reminder that the path of discovery is rarely a straight line, and that the most transformative tools often emerge from the pursuit of meaning, long before they are put to the task of mere navigation. These mountainsides were not merely farmed, they were sculpted into resilience. On the vertiginous slopes of the Andes, ancient engineers carved vast stairways into the sky, a breathtaking feat of agricultural architecture known as terrace farming. Each stone wall, painstakingly fitted without mortar, was far more than a retaining structure. It was the backbone of an entire ecosystem. The genius lay in its multi-layered defense. The walls themselves halted the destructive rush of rainwater down the steep inclines, preventing catastrophic soil erosion that would have stripped the mountains to bare rock in a single generation. But they did more than just hold the earth in place. They created a series of level planting beds that acted like giant sponges. When the rains came, the water would soak deep into the soil on each terrace, rather than sheeting off the mountainside. This captured moisture was then slowly released to the crops over time, a natural, gravity-fed irrigation system that sustained plants through dry periods. This was not a one-size-fits-all solution. The Inca and their predecessors engineered distinct microclimates at different altitudes. A single mountainside could host dozens of varieties of potatoes in its cooler, higher terraces, while its sun-drenched lower levels nurtured maize and quinoa. They even understood soil science on an intuitive level, replenishing nutrients with natural fertilizers like guano from coastal birds and rotating crops to keep the land fertile. What modern agronomists are only now fully appreciating is the sheer elegance of this closed-loop system. It required no artificial pesticides, no chemical fertilizers, and no pumped irrigation. It worked with the mountain, not against it. Today, as industrial agriculture struggles with widespread topsoil loss and water scarcity, these ancient terraces are not just relics, they are active, productive farms and living laboratories. Scientists study them as a gold standard for sustainable land management, a proven model that has fed civilizations for centuries without depleting the very resource it depends upon. How did they know to build such perfect harmony into the landscape? The answer is written not in scrolls, but in the enduring green steppes of the mountains themselves, a testament to a culture that viewed farming not as a conquest of nature, but as a profound and lasting partnership. A different kind of incision was being perfected in ancient India, one that reshaped not stone or metal, but the human face itself. Centuries before Common Era, the physician Sushruta compiled a detailed surgical textbook, the Sushruta Samhita, describing procedures that sound astonishingly modern. He detailed the reconstruction of a nose using a flap of skin grafted from the patient's own cheek or forehead, a technique now known as the forehead flap rhinoplasty. This was not a pursuit of vanity, but a practical response to the punishments of the time, where amputation of the nose was a common penalty for criminals and adulterers. Sushruta and his followers developed a sophisticated system to restore both form and function, using scalpels, forceps, and probes of their own design. They understood the principles of blood supply to a skin graft, knowing that the flap had to remain partially attached to sustain its life while it integrated into its new location. Their knowledge extended beyond noses to the repair of torn earlobes and cleft lips, procedures that required an artist's touch and an engineer's precision. How could such delicate work be performed without anesthesia? They used wine and herbs to induce a state of insensibility, and they possessed a profound understanding of human anatomy from practiced dissection. They even employed natural antiseptics like turmeric and honey to prevent infection, long before the concept of germs was formally understood. This school of surgery in the Indian subcontinent represents a parallel stream of medical genius, one that fundamentally challenges the traditional, Eurocentric narrative of medical history. It forces us to expand our view and recognize that the drive to heal, to reconstruct, and to innovate in the face of human suffering is a global legacy, with brilliant chapters written in languages and cultures far beyond the ancient Mediterranean. The same genius for self-healing concrete was channeled into the arteries of the empire itself. Roman aqueducts were not merely bridges of stone, they were the lifeblood of cities, masterpieces of hydraulic engineering that snaked across the landscape for dozens of miles. To supply a metropolis like Rome with its daily million cubic meters of fresh water, engineers designed channels with a perfectly calculated downward slope, a gradient so shallow it often measured less than 1 foot per mile. This gentle, relentless pull of gravity was the only engine they needed. Achieving this precision over such vast and uneven terrain was a monumental task of surveying. Without modern instruments, they used a tool called a chorobate, a massive, leveled wooden frame with water-filled grooves that acted as a precise spirit level, allowing them to sight a straight and true course across hills and valleys. When the path encountered a deep ravine, they did not divert the channel. They built towering arcades to maintain the gradient. When it met a low hill, they tunneled straight through. The most brilliant innovation, however, came when they needed to cross a valley too wide for arches. They used an inverted siphon, a sealed lead pipe that would carry the water down one side of the valley and, driven by the immense pressure of the water column behind it, force it back up the other side, often to a height nearly matching its origin. This was a daring application of fluid dynamics, requiring pipes strong enough to withstand tremendous pressure without bursting. Along the route, they integrated sedimentation tanks, where water would slow and allow impurities to settle out before continuing its journey, a rudimentary but effective form of purification. The loss of this systematic knowledge after the empire's fall was catastrophic. Medieval cities, unable to maintain or replicate these systems, reverted to drawing polluted water from local rivers and wells, leading to centuries of public health crises. The enduring stone arches we see today are just the skeleton of a system that represented a pinnacle of civic planning, a technology that did not just serve a city, but defined what a city could be. A craftsman in ancient Mesopotamia would have seen glass not as a transparent pane, but as a shimmering, solid liquid. He worked with a material that mimicked the most precious stones, creating brilliant blues from cobalt, vibrant whites from tin, and deep reds from copper, all through a fiery alchemy of sand and flame. This was not a haphazard process, but a meticulously controlled transformation, one of the earliest known forms of high-temperature chemistry. Mesopotamian artisans, working over 4,000 years ago, discovered that by mixing simple silica sand with a flux, like soda ash from burned plants, they could drastically lower the melting point of the mixture. Heated in kilns at temperatures they learned to control with astonishing precision, this bland mixture underwent a miraculous change, becoming a glowing, malleable substance that could be shaped and colored at will. Their genius lay in the additives, the metal oxides they introduced to the melt. A dash of cobalt produced a lapis lazuli blue so coveted it was traded across empires. Manganese created purples and ambers, transforming common sand into objects of royal desire. They pioneered two revolutionary techniques. Core forming involved shaping glass around a removable clay core, building up intricate vessels layer by layer. Later, they would master the art of glassblowing itself, using a hollow tube to breathe a bubble into a molten gather, creating vessels with a speed and thinness never before possible. How did they first stumble upon this process? What inspired someone to take sand, an ingredient so common it was literally underfoot, and subject it to such intense heat? It was likely a byproduct of their metallurgy or faience production, a happy accident observed by a curious mind who then dedicated a lifetime to perfecting it. The fundamental principles they unlocked, the use of fluxes and metal-based colorants, are the very bedrock of our modern glass industry, from the screen you are watching this onto the windows in your home. Yet we do not possess a single complete recipe from them. The exact ratios, the specific clay compositions for their cores, the subtle rituals of their kiln management, these are secrets they took with them. Their legacy is a world remade in transparent and colored glass, a testament to the power of seeing the extraordinary potential hidden within the most ordinary of materials. The same mastery that preserved words in indelible ink was applied to the human body with a wisdom that transcends mere vanity. Along the banks of the Nile, the iconic kohl-rimmed eyes of an Egyptian noble were not simply a fashion statement. They were a sophisticated public health measure. The very pigments used to create that dramatic, almond-shaped look were carefully formulated medicines. They used galena, a lead sulfide ore, to create the dark black coal, and malachite, a green copper carbonate, for vibrant green hues. Modern microbiology has revealed a startling truth about these lead-based compounds. In low doses, they actively stimulate the body's production of nitric oxide, a key molecule that jump-starts the immune system to fight off bacterial infections that cause conjunctivitis and other common eye ailments. This was not a lucky guess, it was a deliberate pharmacological application. Their cosmetic kits were, in effect, portable medical cabinets. They blended these minerals with animal fats, plant oils, and resins to create salves and pastes that protected the eyes from the harsh glare of the sun, repelled flies that carried disease, and soothed inflammation. How did they first stumble upon this dual purpose? It was likely born from generations of observation, noticing that those who wore certain minerals around their eyes suffered less from the blinding infections that plagued others. They refined these recipes over centuries, recording them in medical papyri that detailed treatments for skin diseases, wounds, and burns using cosmetics. A jar of face cream from the era was found to contain a blend of animal fat, starch, and tin oxide, a substance that would have provided both coverage and protection from the sun. This represents a holistic view of the self, where beauty and health were not separate pursuits but intertwined strands of a single goal: well-being. In our modern world, where cosmetics and medicine occupy entirely separate aisles, the Egyptian approach feels almost revolutionary. They understood that what you put on your body is as important as what you put in it, a philosophy of integrated care that we are only now beginning to rediscover. While Egyptian cosmetics blended medicine and beauty, a different kind of precision was taking root in the farmlands of Han Dynasty China. A multi-tube iron plow pulled steadily by an ox carved perfectly spaced furrows into the earth. From funnels above, seeds rattled down through hollow tubes, dropping into the soil at a uniform depth and spacing before being gently covered by soil. This was the Chinese seed drill, and it revolutionized agriculture centuries before a similar device would appear in Europe. Its genius was one of elegant simplicity and profound effect. Before its invention, farmers sowed seeds by hand, a process called broadcasting, which was wildly inefficient. Seeds would land too close together, choking each other out, or too far apart, wasting precious land. They were exposed to birds and the elements, and their uneven depth led to staggered, unreliable germination. The seed drill solved all of this in one mechanical motion. It placed each seed in its own optimal pocket of soil, shielded from predators and given an equal chance to thrive. This precise placement dramatically reduced the amount of seed needed, cutting waste by more than half while simultaneously boosting crop yields. The surplus food this generated was a direct fuel for population growth and societal stability, allowing the Han Empire to flourish. How did they engineer such practical and effective machinery without the benefit of industrial manufacturing or standardized parts? It was a triumph of localized craftsmanship and empirical design, refined over generations of observing what worked best in the field. The iron tips were cast for durability, and the spacing of the tubes was calibrated for specific grains like millet or wheat. This ancient device is a direct ancestor of the massive, computerized planters that crisscross modern farmland today, all operating on the same fundamental principle of precision sowing. It stands as a powerful reminder that some of the most transformative technologies are not always the most dramatic, but those that quietly and reliably address the most fundamental of human needs, feeding a civilization one perfectly placed seed at a time. That same drive to guide humanity across the waves found its ultimate expression in a tower of pure white marble, a flame so immense it became a legend. The Lighthouse of Alexandria did not merely warn ships of danger, it pulled them from the open Mediterranean with a promise of safe harbor. Standing over 350 feet tall, it was a skyscraper of the ancient world, its beam cutting through the darkness from the island of Pharaohs. The secret to its power was not just the size of its fire, but a revolutionary optical system. Ancient sources describe a massive, polished bronze mirror, likely parabolic in shape, mounted at the summit behind the raging furnace. This mirror did not simply reflect the light, it focused it, projecting a concentrated beam that could be seen from an incredible 35 miles out to sea. This was not a passive bonfire, but an active projection of light, a technology that would not be matched until the invention of the modern Fresnel lens in the 19th century. The logistical challenge was staggering. How did they keep such a colossal beacon burning night after night? The answer lay in a relentless supply chain, a steady caravan of wagons hauling wood or perhaps even naphtha, a flammable crude oil, up a spiraling ramp within the tower's core to feed the insatiable flames. Its influence was so profound that the structure's name, Pharaohs, became the root word for lighthouse in countless languages. For over 16 centuries, it stood as a sentinel of knowledge and trade, guiding vessels laden with scholars, spices, and scrolls into the greatest library and learning center of the ancient world. Its eventual collapse from a series of earthquakes was more than the loss of a building. It was the dimming of a guiding star. The mechanisms of its great mirror are lost to us, the exact fuels and furnace designs now only speculation. Yet its ghost remains, a symbol of a time when humanity could build not just for itself, but for any traveler lost on the vast, dark sea, a testament to an engineering compassion that reached across the water to guide the way home. High in the Andes, the Inca administered an empire spanning thousands of miles without a single sheet of parchment or a carved stone tablet. Their bureaucracy ran on a language of knots. The Quipu was a complex recording device made of a main cord from which hung dozens of subsidiary strings, each dyed in a specific color and tied with a unique sequence of knots. This was not mere accounting, it was a sophisticated, three-dimensional data storage system. The position of a knot on a string indicated its place value from units to thousands, while the type of knot represented a digit. A figure 8 knot meant 1, a long knot could be 2 through 9 depending on the number of turns, and a single overhand knot signified 10, 100, or 1000. The colors of the cords added another layer of meaning, likely coding for the subject of the record, whether it was a census of llamas, a tally of grain from a storehouse, or the number of men eligible for military service. Modern scholars, like the late Gary Urton, have proposed that the system was so intricate it may have been capable of encoding narrative histories and laws, a true written language constructed not from ink but from fiber and tension. The Quipu master, or Kipukamayak, was a living librarian, trained from youth to read and create these tactile records, holding the empire's memory in his hands. The Spanish conquistadors, seeing only pagan curiosities, systematically destroyed thousands of these quipus, a cultural and informational holocaust that severed our connection to this unique technology. Today, researchers are using databases and complex algorithms to try and crack the remaining codes, searching for patterns in the few hundred quipus that survived. What epic poems or royal decrees are silently held in those tangled threads? the Quipu stands as a profound challenge to our most basic assumptions, forcing us to ask if we have been too narrow in our definition of writing, and if a civilization can be considered illiterate when it wove its history into a language of string. The stone arteries of the Roman Empire stretched for over 250,000 miles, connecting its distant provinces with unyielding efficiency. These were not simple dirt tracks, but complex, multi-layered highways engineered to endure for ages. The construction of a Roman road was a meticulous process, beginning with the digging of a deep trench. This foundation was then packed with a layer of large stones, followed by successive layers of smaller rocks, gravel, and sand, all bound together with a precise mix of lime mortar. The final surface was often paved with interlocking polygonal stones, fitted so tightly that even today, many of these ancient roads remain in use, their surfaces worn smooth by 2,000 years of footsteps and wheels. The genius extended beyond the surface, with cambered roads and roadside ditches ensuring rainwater would drain away quickly, preventing the erosion that cripples modern asphalt. How did they maintain such a straight path across mountains and valleys? Roman surveyors used an instrument called a groma, a cross-shaped device with weighted plumb lines to sight perfect straight lines over incredible distances. This network was the physical internet of the ancient world, a system of information and control. Imperial messengers could travel up to 50 miles a day, relaying orders and intelligence from Rome to its farthest frontiers with a speed that would not be surpassed until the 19th century. Legions could march where they were needed, and trade goods flowed safely, binding the empire into a single, cohesive unit. The road was more than a path. It was a statement of Roman order imposed upon the chaos of the landscape, a technology of unity whose silent, stony echoes still guide our steps today. The Antikythera Mechanism was not a solitary marvel, but the pinnacle of an entire tradition of mechanical genius. Across the Greek world, artisans and philosophers constructed other intricate devices, like the astrolabe, a portable bronze disc that could map the stars and calculate the time or latitude. There were also elaborate planetarium models, small orreries powered by hand cranks that displayed the dance of the known planets with a startling accuracy. Each of these instruments was, in its own right, an analog computer. They translated the complex mathematics of the cosmos into the physical turn of a gear or the alignment of a dial, making the abstract movements of the heavens tangible and predictable. To create such a device required a mind that could simultaneously hold advanced astronomical theory, complex geometrical calculations, and the practical skill of precision metalworking. The maker had to know not only the orbital period of Saturn, but how to cast a bronze gear with teeth so fine and exact that it would mesh perfectly with its neighbor for thousands of rotations. This was a truly interdisciplinary feat, a fusion of science and craft that we associate with the finest engineering of the Renaissance. So how many of these incredible machines were built? The sobering truth is that the Antikythera Mechanism survived only by a freak accident, lying protected at the bottom of the sea. Its more fragile cousins, made of wood and thin metal, almost certainly turned to dust centuries ago in the dry air of libraries or the looted ruins of workshops. Their existence hints at a hidden technological stratum, a culture of scientific instrumentation that was likely far more widespread among scholars and navigators than the single surviving artifact suggests. These were not toys for kings, but practical tools for understanding the world. In their interlocking gears and calibrated scales, we see the ghost of a different intellectual path, a mechanical approach to computation that prefigured the very principles of the digital age, not with silicon, but with bronze and brilliant human ingenuity. The same ingenuity that raised pyramids to the sky was also applied to mastering the currents of the Nile and beyond. Egyptian shipwrights constructed massive seafaring vessels from native acacia and cedar, using a revolutionary approach that defied the apparent fragility of their materials. Instead of relying on a rigid internal frame, they built their hulls like a flexible basket, lashing planks together with tightly wound ropes fed through meticulously carved holes. This created a hull that could twist and give with the waves, a living structure that absorbed stress rather than fighting it. The true genius was in the tensioning. After assembly, the entire ship was deliberately soaked. The wooden planks would swell and the rope lashings would shrink, pulling every joint into a watertight, immensely strong seal. This was a ship designed to breathe with the water, not simply sit on top of it. These were not river barges, but ocean-going cargo ships, capable of voyages to the fabled land of Punt, a journey of thousands of miles down the Red Sea and back, laden with frankincense, gold, and exotic animals. How did they navigate such open waters without a magnetic compass? They were masters of celestial navigation, using the stars to guide them, and they possessed an intimate knowledge of currents and winds, reading the sea itself as a map. Modern shipwrights studying these designs are struck by their hydrodynamic efficiency, a shape honed by centuries of observation that minimized drag and maximized stability. This maritime technology was the engine of an empire's economy, a network of global exchange that connected Egypt to the wider world. It stands as a powerful, silent testament to a civilization we often picture as landlocked and pyramid-obsessed, revealing a people who are also among history's most daring and capable explorers, their legacy written not in stone, but in the timeless logic of a well-tied knot and a hull built to dance with the ocean. That brilliant tapestry of ancient technology was not woven in an unbroken line. The gears of the Antikythera Mechanism fell silent, the secret of Greek fire was extinguished, and the formula for self-healing concrete was buried with the Roman Empire itself. These were not isolated failures, but casualties in a long, slow war against time, forgetfulness, and societal collapse. Knowledge is a fragile thing. It can be scattered by the sacking of a library, like the Great Library of Alexandria, its scrolls turning to ash and taking untold ideas with them. It can be fragmented by the collapse of trade routes that once connected master smiths to their unique ore deposits, or by the disintegration of guilds that held sacred, unwritten recipes. A single natural disaster, a prolonged drought, or a wave of conquest could erase centuries of accumulated wisdom in a generation, forcing humanity to relearn what it once already knew. This cycle of loss and rediscovery is a ghost in the machine of human history. The principle of the steam engine, demonstrated in Hero's Aeolipile, had to wait nearly 2 millennia to be reinvented. The precise celestial alignments of the pyramids were achievements that would not be matched for thousands of years. Our modern timeline of progress is not a straight, ascending arrow, but a story of brilliant peaks and deep, mysterious valleys, where whole forests of innovation were cleared and forgotten, leaving only a single, petrified trunk like the Antikythera Mechanism to hint at what was lost. Today, a new kind of exploration is underway. It happens not in the field, but in the laboratory, where geologists analyze Roman concrete with electron microscopes and materials scientists test the properties of Damascus steel. It is a deeply interdisciplinary mission, stitching together clues from archaeology, chemistry, astronomy, and linguistics to reassemble a more connected and startlingly advanced picture of the ancient world. This painstaking work reveals that our ancestors were not primitive predecessors, but ingenious problem solvers whose insights often paralleled and sometimes surpassed our own. So what can we learn from this pattern of brilliance and oblivion? It teaches us that progress is not guaranteed. It is a legacy that must be consciously and carefully preserved, shared widely, and protected from the certainties of our own age. The greatest technology we can cultivate, then, might not be a new device but a deeper humility and a renewed commitment to ensuring that the light of knowledge once kindled is never allowed to go out again. These scattered fragments of genius force a difficult question upon our modern certainty. We are taught a simple story of human advancement, a steady climb from primitive tools to sophisticated smartphones, a timeline where each generation builds directly upon the last. But the evidence left behind by these invisible technologies tells a far more complex and turbulent tale. Progress is not a straight line, but a meandering river with brilliant, isolated pools of innovation that form and then vanish back into the current. The Antikythera Mechanism did not lead directly to the pocket watch, and the self-healing concrete of Rome was not the foundation for our modern infrastructure. These were sparks that flew up from the fire of their particular time and place, born from a unique combination of cultural need, environmental pressure, and sheer human curiosity. The Roman Hypocaust system collapsed not because people forgot how to feel warm, but because the vast, organized economy that built and maintained it ceased to exist. The secret of Damascus Steel was lost not through a decline in intelligence, but likely through the disruption of trade routes or the exhaustion of a specific mine. This reveals that technology is not an independent force, but a fragile flower, deeply rooted in the soil of its society. It requires a stable environment to grow, and it can be wiped out by the slightest frost of war, famine, or forgotten knowledge. What does this mean for us today in our age of seemingly relentless acceleration? We surround ourselves with devices we barely understand, relying on global supply chains and specialized knowledge that could be fractured by any number of crises. Our own technological marvels, from the microchip to the global network, are deeply embedded in a specific and precarious economic and ecological context. If that context were to change dramatically, how much of our own science would become a baffling mystery to future archaeologists? They might unearth a smartphone and marvel at its complexity, yet have no way of accessing the vast, invisible world of information it was designed to connect to. The lesson from the ancient world is not that we are less clever, but that we are not immune to the same cycles of discovery and oblivion. This perspective is not meant to induce fear, but to cultivate a profound humility and a renewed sense of responsibility. It invites us to look at our own creations not as permanent fixtures, but as chapters in a much longer story. Are we building technologies that are resilient, that can be understood and maintained? Or are we creating a new kind of invisible knowledge, just as fragile as the lost formula for Greek fire? The legacy of these ancient masters urges us to think not just about the next breakthrough, but about how we preserve the light of understanding for the generations who will one day puzzle over the silent, rust-resistant pillars of our own age. From the intricate gears of the Antikythera Mechanism to the knotted strings of the Inca Quipu, these 28 invisible technologies paint a portrait of an ancient world crackling with a genius we are only beginning to measure. This hidden history defies our modern expectations at every turn, revealing that the timeline of human progress is not a straight, ascending line, but a rich tapestry woven with threads of breathtaking discovery, profound loss, and slow, painstaking rediscovery. Each artifact is more than a relic. It is a question posed to our own age. How did they know? Why did they forget? And what crucial pieces of our own puzzle might we, in our certainty, be overlooking today? As archaeologists and scientists continue to peel back the layers of time, we gain more than just historical knowledge. We uncover a deep well of inspiration. The self-healing concrete of Rome offers a blueprint for sustainable infrastructure. The terraced farms of the Andes present a model for resilient agriculture. The holistic medicine of the Egyptians challenges our fragmented approach to health. These are not dusty answers from a dead past, but living conversations with our ancestors. They urge us to look at our own technological challenges not as unprecedented obstacles, but as puzzles that may have already been solved in a different form, with different tools, by minds just as brilliant as our own. So we leave you with this thought: look around at the world you know. What modern marvels do you take for granted that might, one day, become a mystery for a future civilization to unravel? Which of these ancient enigmas captured your imagination the most? The unrusting iron pillar, the liquid fire that defied water, or the celestial computer rescued from the seafloor? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and if this journey into the wonders of our shared past has sparked your curiosity, subscribe for more explorations into the unknown. The conversation between our time and theirs is far from over, and every new discovery invites us to continue exploring together.